Ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Athens. Kalimera από την Αθήνα. President Vasilios Gounaris, the Board of Directors of the Association of Hellenic Plastics Industries, and myself welcome you to this international conference that takes place via teleconference. First of all, we would like to express our appreciation and thank BASF Greece and President Gounaris, who allows us to use their facilities and broadcast this event to the whole world. Secondly, and also very important, we express our appreciation and thank the 14 companies members of the association who supported us financially, and with their help, it became possible to organize this event. We also thank the communication sponsor. And third, and most important, I would like to express my appreciation to the wonderful team for their contribution in the organization of this event. We plan to organize this event in a hotel in Athens in order to be all together, but as you know, because of the pandemic of COVID-19, we decided to organize this event via teleconference. Today's program has two parts: the official greetings and 7 presentations that will cover the recycling of plastics in the circular economy from different perspectives. I pass the relay to President Vasilios Gounaris for the official opening greeting of this international conference. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Elias, thank you a lot for your cooperation in the last 2 years in the association. Good morning also from my side. Dear Minister, dear Secretary General, dear President, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure and honor to welcome you today in my capacity of President of the Hellenic Association of Plastic Industries. I hope you are all fit and healthy. As the pandemic is not over yet, unfortunately, we cannot meet in person to discuss our common goals and our way forward. I hope our next meeting will bring us together and this pandemic will be a thing of the past. Today's conference is part of the many ongoing initiatives undertaken by the Association of Plastics Industries of Greece, aiming at increasing plastics recycling and achieving the transition to an effective circular economy model. The current decade is full of challenges and opportunities for the recycling industry, hence the title we have chosen for our conference. Today's event features distinguished guest speakers who will provide valuable insights into the topic. They will inform us about the current developments in the area of recycling in Greece and in Europe, about the challenges and opportunities for plastics converters and European recyclers, as well as about chemical recycling and the mass balance approach. Greece has to do more to reduce its plastic pollution and improve its waste management systems. Recycling rates are low and landfills remain a black hole for our country, which continues to pay high fines to the European Union. Here, all stakeholders have a key role to play in the whole process. To improve the situation and tackle those complex challenges, the Association of Hellenic Plastics Industries undertakes a flagship initiative in order to confirm once again that it is a reliable partner of the Greek government and to reaffirm our ways to contribute to increasing recycling rates in Greece. In the coming weeks, we will commission the Foundation for Economic and Industrial Research, EOVE, to draft a study on recycling in Greece. With the support of all parties involved, we are confident that this study will be a success. We aspire that it will be a roadmap for all of us. The study will include the vision of the Association of Hellenic Plastic Industries for recycling in Greece and its proposals to effectively contribute to an improved operation of this industry in our country. The Greek plastics industry is part of the solution, not part of the problem. As I have said many times, our problem is not plastics, but plastic waste, which is caused by their improper disposal. Recycling can offer solutions to this challenge. However, in order to achieve a sustainable development, we must act now towards increasing plastics recycling. In fact, the plastics industry worldwide is playing a key role in increasing recycling rates. It offers new innovative technologies, such as chemical recycling, which is expected to play a key role during this decade and provide new solutions to existing problems. As far as Greece is concerned, we believe that we should focus on 3 areas. In the first area, by building the necessary recycling infrastructure. We hope that the new bill, which has been announced, will describe in details the steps in this direction and towards the reduction of our dependence on landfills. In the second area, we have to facilitate citizens to recycle. Separate waste streams announced under the waste collection systems will contribute to this direction and help for more efficient recycling. And last but not least, in the third area, we should inform consumers and increase their awareness on the proper use of materials. Plastic has unfortunately been demonized, even though it has improved the daily lives of billions of people around the world. No doubt about that, due to its excellent properties and many applications. Plastic paid the price for its success. I wish that this conference will help all stakeholders to come closer and work together to meet our common goals. Recycle as many plastics as possible and reuse them as a resource to produce new products within a circular economy. Last but not least, I have the pleasure to announce that we are about to launch our first website. Future modern design and a more user-friendly navigation. You are all welcome to visit our site in the coming days and find useful information about the Greek plastics industry. Thank you very much for your attention and for attending this conference on recycling. And now, I would like to welcome Mr. Adonis Goryadis, Minister of Development and Investments. Thank you, Adonis, for being here today. It's a great honor for us. I know that your schedule is really busy, so we really appreciate your presence at our conference. Adonis, the floor is yours. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say that I'm very honored for the invitation. I think that it's a very important issue to find a way under the new values of sustained economy and of a growth that will be friendly with the environment, that will find the new role of the plastic industry into this new environment of sustained growth. And I'm sure that working together in good spirit and using all the new technology that we can use will have at the same time a very friendly environment policy in this area with great responsibility about the future of our generations, and from the other hand, a profitable business that will produce good products that will help the consumers and everybody to have a prosperous life. So I think your today meeting is important. The Greek government supports it all the way, and we are here to help you as much as we can to do it in the proper way. So you know that my office is always open to find solutions, and I'm waiting to hear your proposals in order to see how we'll make things happen in the proper way. Thank you very much, and I wish all the success.
Thank you, Minister, for your intention and willingness to cooperate. You gave us extremely valuable insights on the Minister's visions on the matter. And now I would like to welcome Dr. Konstantinos Saravosis, Secretary General of Natural Environment and Waters, Ministry of Environment and Energy. We had the pleasure to have Dr. Saravosis as keynote speaker in previous Association of Hellenic Plastic Industries conferences. During the last 2 years, we have a close cooperation and an open and a constructive dialogue with Dr. Saravosis on matters that deal with environmental protection, circular economy, and waste management. Dr. Saravosis, thank you for being here today. The floor is yours.
It's a pleasure to be again in a conference that you organize and make an address also on behalf of the Minister of Environment, Kostas Krekas. It is a very interesting international conference, the one you organize now concerning recycling in the circular economy and the challenges and the opportunities that are associated with this. As you know, we have now finalized the national plan for circular economy. This has gone through a process. There was consultation within an intergovernmental committee where there were representatives from all different productive ministries, and also in the National Circular Economy Committee, where your organization is also represented. And we have come up to a final text, which has recently gone through a public consultation, and it is now finalized. We had many comments that we have incorporated them all, and this is going now to be realized. It includes a series of concrete actions that have to be implemented over the period 2021-2025, and these actions have the aim to transform all different aspects of Greek economy into circularity. There are 66 different actions. Some of them have already started, and they include different goals in the areas of sustainable production. This is one chapter. Sustainable consumption, the other chapter. Waste management, and also horizontal issues that are related to governance and administration. And also, there are specific actions for concrete products and services that are resource intensive, and they have a high potential for circularity. Apart from that, you know that the aim of our ministry is to have what we call green, digital, and circular growth. This goes all together. And this has a lot to do with the actions and the targets we have set within our circular economy plan. In this context, we already have realized the proposal for the national plan for green public procurement, and the most important action and policy that we have discussed a lot, and we are continuously cooperating in order to find the best way of actually applying it, is the single-use plastics legislation, where the organization has played a very important role in the consultation period. And this is now going to be implemented. As you know, already 10 different types of plastics are not used anymore in the public sector. And on the 4th of July, this will also start in the private sector. And the law, you know that it has included all the main provisions of the EU Directive for plastics. And there is a withdrawal of the specific single-use plastics products. There is a target for the consumption reduction for single-use plastics, food containers and cups. And there are certain requirements for products, marking requirements, aiming at the redesign of the products according to ecological criteria and to circularity criteria. What is very important is that apart, and also there's an introduction of new products in the extended producer responsibility schemes, and also, and this is very important for the success, awareness raising measures and so on. And as you know that we have also included some national measures that are ambitious. For example, the environmental fee on specific single-use plastics starting 2023, with the aim to return this amount that is going to be collected through the Green Fund to local authorities and to use these funds for environmental actions. Of course, it is crucial for the industry to adapt in this new law. And for this, and we have discussed it with you thoroughly, and we are still in cooperation, there needs to be financial help for the companies to adapt and to make the necessary investments. And for this, there will be specified programs within the EU funding, the next EU funding period within ESPA. There will be a very specified program for the adaptation of the plastics industry, and of course, a special program for circular economy in general, where companies will have financial incentives in order to adapt. What I would like to say that is in context with today's conference is that recycling is very crucial in order for all these policies to have success. And here we have to put an emphasis to help for the market to provide the necessary infrastructure for recycling. And it is very important to have a secondary material market. And we have to work in this direction because here there is a lack, there are problems for absorbing all the materials that are collected and to have proper infrastructure for recycling, and especially to have plants that will produce secondary raw materials products, secondary raw materials of a high quality. And here the EU has set some standards, and we have to adopt them also in Greece, because this is also the main burden why it is not, it is difficult to have market for secondary products, and we know that even China and India have stopped importing these materials as it used to be in the past. So Europe, Greece, has to have its own markets for absorbing and utilizing these products. And we will put emphasis on that, and we need your help and cooperation for this. And as I said, it's very important to have high standards and to have standards and quality in these materials so that they can really be used in the industry. I think that now, since there is funding available for the next 4 years to come from the EU, there is the Green EU deal, the Green Deal of the EU, and there's 1 trillion in the that the EU is going to with which the EU is going to finance green actions. So, since there is funding available, and in Greece there is a central policy to go towards the target of greening the economy, the Prime Minister himself has said that as a main target, and our ministry, the Ministry for Environment and Energy, is going to put emphasis on all green actions that will help us to adapt to climate change. And apart from that, circular economy is a prerequisite in order to be able to achieve the targets set by the EU, and especially set as national targets within our circular economy plan. So I would like to wish you success in your today's event, and I am sure that there will be very important issues raised, and we would like, when you finish today's conference, to send us the summary or the proposals that have been discussed within this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Aravosis, for your inspiring speech. Thank you for your cooperation. We have to work together. We have a lot to do together. Keep going. And now I give the floor to Mr. Mamalis, Association of Hellenic Plastics Industries Executive Director, for the second part of the event. Elia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I mentioned before, we have the honor to host 7 distinguished presenters from various organizations and institutions to present their insights and various solutions to the recycling of plastic material in the circular economy. We start our event with Mr. Manolis Grafakos, who is General Secretary and Waste Management Coordinator at the Greek Ministry of Environment and Energy. Mr. Grafakos holds a degree from the Economic Sciences from the University of Athens. He has more than 10 years' experience in the private sector, in the financial sector, and in the field of investment banking. Since 2004 till today, he has an extensive experience in the public sector in various key positions, and since 2019, he is the current General Secretary of Waste Management Coordination at the Greek Ministry of Environment and Energy. Mr. Grafakos will speak in Greek with simultaneous translation in English. Please, we kindly ask for the non-Greek speakers, if you would like to hear Mr. Grafakos' speech in English, please refresh the page of the event, and then will appear a double choice. Please select the English language. Κύριε Γραφάκο, ο λόγος σε εσάς.
Σας ευχαριστώ, κύριε Μάμαλη. Να ευχαριστήσω το Σύνδεσμο Βιομηχανίας Πλαστικών Ελλάδος για την πρόσκληση και βεβαίως να τον συγχαρώ για τη συγκροτημένη και θεσμική παρουσία του στα δημόσια πράγματα τα τελευταία χρόνια. Είναι μια συλλογική φωνή σοβαρότητας, αξιοπρέπειας, καινοτομίας, που πιστεύω ότι συμβάλλει ουσιαστικά με την παρουσία του στην προώθηση ζητημάτων της βιομηχανίας συνολικότερα, της κυκλικής οικονομίας, αλλά και γενικότερα του επιχειρήν. Έχω ετοιμάσει μια παρουσίαση συνοπτική. Η χώρα μας αυτή τη στιγμή βρίσκεται σε μια διαδικασία μετάβασης από τις άσχημες επιδόσεις του παρελθόντος προς τους στόχους που έχουν τεθεί σε επίπεδο Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Το που βρισκόμαστε σήμερα, στην ανακύκλωση και στην ταφή, αποτυπώνεται ξεκάθαρα στο διάγραμμα το οποίο βλέπετε. Πού θέλουμε να πάμε? Η επόμενη διαφάνεια. Ναι. Θέλουμε να πάμε γρήγορα στους στόχους που έχουν τεθεί σε επίπεδο Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης από την Οδηγία 851, στόχοι οι οποίοι πλέον θα γίνουν και εθνικοί στόχοι μέσα από το νομοσχέδιο της ανακύκλωσης και της διαχείρισης των αποβλήτων, το οποίο εντός Ιουνίου θα καταθέσουμε στη Βουλή. Θέλουμε να πάμε από το 20% ανακύκλωση σήμερα σε υψηλότερα ποσοστά. Κρατάμε μια επιφύλαξη για το αν θα τα καταφέρουμε το 2025. Αυτό θα το πετύχουμε μέσα από υποδομές διαλογής, συλλογής, ξεχωριστής συλλογής. Θα το πετύχουμε μέσα από νέα συστήματα εναλλακτικής διαχείρισης και την ταφή από 78% που είμαστε σήμερα στο 10% το 2030 που έχουμε βάλει ως στόχο, θα την πετύχουμε αξιοποιώντας και την ενεργειακή αξιοποίηση των αποβλήτων. Ενεργειακή αξιοποίηση μέσα από την υφιστάμενη βιομηχανική δυνατότητα της χώρας, την τσιμεντοβιομηχανία, αλλά και μέσα από νέες επενδύσεις που θα γίνουν στον τομέα αυτό. Στη συνέχεια, περάσουμε στην επόμενη διαφάνεια, είναι γνωστοί οι στόχοι για την ανακύκλωση των πλαστικών. Δεν χρειάζεται να τους επαναλάβω. Στα πλαστικά συσκευασίας είμαστε σχετικά καλά. Υπάρχει ένα σύστημα το οποίο λειτουργεί αρκετά αποτελεσματικά, με αποτέλεσμα οι στόχοι να ικανοποιούνται. Στη συνέχεια, αν έχετε την καλοσύνη να συνεχίσετε. Συνεχίστε. Είναι οι λοιποί στόχοι τους οποίους βλέπετε ότι η χώρα μας εν γέννη στη συσκευασία τους πιάνει. Τολμάμε μέσα από το νομοσχέδιο για την ενεργειακή αξιοποίηση, για την ανακύκλωση, να πάμε σε δύο μέτρα τα οποία δεν μοιάζουν φιλικά, λαϊκά, αλλά όμως είναι σημαντικά. Το πρώτο είναι το τέλος ταφής. Βάζουμε τέλος ταφής 20 ευρώ τον τόνο από το 2022 για κάθε τόνο αποβλήτων που οδηγείται σε ταφή. Αντιλαμβάνεστε ότι αυτό θα λειτουργήσει αποτρεπτικά για να οδηγούνται απόβλητα σε ταφή, αλλά θα προτρέψει παράλληλα και όλους τους φορείς να αναζητήσουν καλύτερα και αποτελεσματικότερα τις μεθόδους ανακύκλωσης και συλλογής, ξεχωριστής συλλογής. Το δεύτερο μέτρο, το οποίο είναι καινοτομία, χαρακτηρίζει το νέο εθνικό μας σχεδιασμό, αλλά και την νομοθεσία που επίκειται τις επόμενες μέρες στη Βουλή είναι η εφαρμογή του Pay As You Throw στη χώρα. Σταδιακά το εφαρμόζουμε για την διαχείριση των βιοαποβλήτων και παράλληλα θα βγάλουμε και πιλωτικά προγράμματα με δικαιούχους στους Δήμους για να μπορέσουν να εφαρμόσουν τις βέλτιστες πρακτικές για να μπορέσουμε να μετρήσουμε την παραγωγή των αποβλήτων ανακάτοικο. Βεβαίως, αν έχετε την καλοσύνη, μία διαφάνεια πίσω είμαστε. Εδώ. Όλα αυτά δεν γίνονται μόνο μέσα από υποδομές ξεχωριστής συλλογής, γίνονται και με υποδομές διαχείρισης αποβλήτων, σύγχρονες μονάδες διαχείρισης αποβλήτων. Πριν από 2 χρόνια σε λειτουργία η χώρα είχε 4 και σε κατασκευή άλλες 4. Σήμερα, λιγότερο από 2 χρόνια, έχουμε σε λειτουργία 5, σε κατασκευή 8 και σε δημοπράτηση 19. Με τις 2 τελευταίες αυτές τις εμβληματικές των Αθηνών, της Αττικής, και πριν από λίγες μέρες της Θεσσαλονίκης. Είναι οι 3 μεγαλύτερες μονάδες στη χώρα, μονάδες οι οποίες θα γίνουν με την μέθοδο των ΣΔΙΤ. Στόχος του Υπουργείου Περιβάλλοντος είναι εντός του 2021 να έχουμε δημοπρατήσει το σύνολο σχεδόν των μονάδων που απαιτούνται προκειμένου η χώρα να καλύψει τις ανάγκες της. Παράλληλα, μέσα από το νομοσχέδιο για την ανακύκλωση, προκειμένου να ενισχύσουμε αυτή τη διαδικασία, αναβαθμίζουμε τα κέντρα διαλογής ανακυκλωσίμων υλικών, τους βάζουμε απαιτήσεις να αυξήσουν τις ικανότητές τους και βεβαίως λέμε για ακόμα μια φορά ότι η επίτευξη του στόχου 10% ταφή περνάει μέσα από την ενεργειακή αξιοποίηση. Σε ό,τι αφορά κάποια βασικά μέτρα που σχετίζονται με τα πλαστικά, που περιλαμβάνει το Εθνικό Πρόγραμμα Πρόληψης Δημιουργίας Αποβλήτων, που στοχεύουμε τον Ιούνιο να εγκριθεί όπως προβλέπεται από το Υπουργικό Συμβούλιο. Σε ό,τι αφορά την μείωση της κατανάλωσης των πλαστικών συσκευασίας, προωθούμε διαδικασίες για αγορά προϊόντων χίδιν σε σχέση με συσκευασμένων. Προωθούμε συστήματα διανομής ποτών που παράγουν σαφώς λιγότερα απόβλητα. Ενθαρρύνουμε την επαναχρησιμοποίηση συσκευασιών με κατάλληλη σήμανση για την ανάδειξη των φιλικών προς το περιβάλλον συσκευασιών. Προωθούμε τον οικολογικό σχεδιασμό των συσκευασιών, ενώ σε ό,τι αφορά τις πλαστικές σακούλες μεταφοράς, και εκεί προωθούμε κίνητρα, φορολογικές ελαφρύνσεις για τη μη πώληση αυτών των προϊόντων, προώθηση σακουλών που μπορούν να επαναχρησιμοποιηθούν, πολλαπλών χρήσεων, και βεβαίως εδώ θα πρέπει και η βιομηχανία, όπως θα κλείσω και στη συνέχεια, να αναλάβει και το δικό της ρόλο στην παραγωγή προϊόντων φιλικότερων προς το περιβάλλον. Κλείνοντας, τα είπε πολύ καλά ο κύριος Αραβώσης πριν, το νομοσχέδιο, ο νόμος πλέον για τα πλαστικά μιας χρήσης, του οποίου υπήρξε ο κύριος συντάκτης με την γενική του γραμματεία, προβλέπει 4 ευρώ, 4 cents για τα πλαστικά κυπελάκια, προβλέπει την υποχρέωση για προώθηση της επαναχρησιμοποίησης προϊόντων στις επιχειρήσεις εστίασης, προβλέπει τη την δωρεάν διανομή νερού από τους Δήμους σε συγκεκριμένα σημεία, παιδικές χαρές, προβλέπει το σύστημα DRS. Πιστεύουμε σε αυτό και πιστεύουμε ότι στην εφαρμογή του η υλοποίησή του θα συμβάλλει στην μείωση της δημιουργίας πλαστικών αποβλήτων. προβλέπει τη σήμανση, νέα σήμανση στα πλαστικά μιας χρήσης και προβλέπει, όπως και το νομοσχέδιο το οποίο καταθέτουμε τώρα, νέα συστήματα για πλαστικά, όπως στην αλληλεία, αλλά και στα παιχνίδια, όπως θα δείτε και στο αθλητικό υλικό. Κλείνοντας, θα κλείσω με τον τίτλο της σημερινής σας ημερίδας, που είναι οι προκλήσεις και οι προοπτικές για τη βιομηχανία των πλαστικών. Όλους αυτούς τους στόχους είναι προφανές ότι θα τους πετύχουμε εάν συνεργαστούν όλοι οι φορείς της οικονομίας με ο καθένας από το δικό του ρόλο. Εμείς βάζοντας τους κανόνες, βάζοντας το θεσμικό πλαίσιο και βεβαίως η βιομηχανία προσαρμοζόμενη στα νέα δεδομένα, στις νέες καταναλωτικές συνήθειες που πράγματι θέλουμε να φέρουμε, που θα αλλάξουν τη μορφή της κατανάλωσης σε ό,τι αφορά τα πλαστικά μιας κρίσης, να προσαρμοστούν με καινοτόμα νέα προϊόντα, τα οποία θα ακολουθήσουν την τάση της εποχής, που δεν είναι άλλη να κάνουμε το μέγιστο δυνατό για την προστασία του περιβάλλοντος, για την απεξάρτηση της Ένωσής μας από την εισαγωγή πρώτων υλών και για την δυνατότητα να ανακτούμε και να ανακυκλώνουμε και να επαναχρησιμοποιούμε προϊόντα τα οποία υπό άλλες συνθήκες οδηγούνται σε ταφή. Θερμά συγχαρητήρια για τη σημερινή πρωτοβουλία. Ευχαριστώ για την πρόσκληση και καλή συνέχεια στις εργασίες του συνεδρίου.
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ, κύριε Γενικέ, για την εξαιρετική παρουσίαση για τη διαχείριση των στερεών αποβλήτων και το πλάνο που θα ακολουθήσει η χώρα για τα επόμενα χρόνια για τη δραστική μείωση των αποβλήτων. Ο Σύνδεσμος Βιομηχανιών Πλαστικών Ελλάδος ήταν, είναι και θα είναι αρρωγός στις ενέργειες του Υπουργείου για ένα καλύτερο αύριο για τη χώρα μας στο χώρο των πλαστικών αποβλήτων.
Σας ευχαριστώ.
The following speaker is Ton Emmans. Ton is the president of Plastics Recyclers Europe. Ton is a graduate of the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands and has a master's degree in occupational health and safety. Ton leads the Plastics Recyclers organization over 10 years, and today he will present the recycling sector in Europe. Ton, the electronic floor is yours. We cannot hear you. We cannot hear you, Ton.
Good morning, everyone. So, good morning, Mr. Marvelous. Do you have the presentation? Good. Okay, thank you. Yes, beside that, I'm the president of the Plastic Recycling Association. I'm a really recycler who start today with 2 feet in the mud. I think that is important to say. I would like to go to the next slide, please. So, the Plastic Recycling Europe Association covered 80% of the market. We have more than 600 companies who's member of our association, 220,000 employees who are working in the recycling industry, and we do more than 8.5 million tons of recycled plastics. And the turnover is more than 3 billion. Please, next slide. I would like to say something about the market. Can we go to the next slide? When we talk about recycling, and we saw a little bit about numbers, we talk first about PET. The total amount of PET, what is dropped on the market, is 5.3 billion tons. And of course, the most of the biggest amounts is simple for use for packaging. When we see bottles, then we see they are slower grow and the slower space than we have. There will be not so much in the future more, but trace consumption will be grown. Next slide, please. But when we look to the collection, then we see that only 52% for recycling were collected. And if you look, 35% was collected by deposit return schemes. And of course, we expect that the collection of trades will be increased. Of the 1.35 million tons of PET that was produced in 2018, yeah, can you go back to the next slide? Previous slide, thank you. Previous slide, please. Now, the next one. Yeah, so I think that it's important to say here that only 52% was what I say was collected, yeah, and 35% of the bottles was collected by a deposit return scheme. And as I mentioned, that the trades will be expanded to increase. As we showed before, we see that we have a recycling target, the 77% for 2025 and the 90% by 2029, yeah, for beverages bottles. So this will be bringing a big pressure on the collection schemes. And we see that only 10 member states have in the deposit return scheme. And of the 9 of the 10, they already achieve 83% today. Next slide, please. If you look, the total capacity what is installed on PET recycling is 2.2 million tons. You see here the simple countries, and you see that we produce with this recycling capacity roughly 1.35 million tons of recycled PET. Well, only 400,000 tons is back use in food and non-food. And the rest of the where we use in bottles where there's 0.37 was used for where bottles was in contact with food. So if you would like to start up a recycling facility for PET, then you need to consider that you have to invest roughly 1.5 million euros, yeah, from a green field, yeah, for every, say, 1,000 tons. But you need to consider that it will take you 2 years to get an environmental permit. And beside of that, you have another 1 year to customization your product with your customer. Can you go to the next slide, please? So make it very clear for PET and the future, the legislation play a very important role when we talk about recycling. So in the future, we have to send to recyclers 3.6 million tons, yeah, to get out this, say, simple to recycle the 55%, but as a simple to say that we have to achieve this 30% in all the beverages bottles. So we expect that the bottle recycling will be grown. So less of the grades will go to the sheets. That is what we see. And we see a simple the trends, trades to trades recycling will grow. But when we talk about the needs and the bottlenecks, simple, we see today still that there's a low to collection, yeah, and missing of feedstock is more to collection needed and enable us to achieve our targets. The lack of harmonization and standards on the input and output need to be stable to come to quality supply. And beside of that, yeah, the unstable uptake. It makes no sense that people say that they want to use 100% recycled material in their bottles. We can only achieve that, and later will people talk about it, when we do maybe chemical recycling. Next, please. Slide, please. So when we talk about films, we drop on the European market between 13 and 50 million tons of flexible films. 60% of these films are PE. Others are 18% is PP and 50% is multilayers. 80% of the PE film are used for packaging application, and 23% of that is used for food contact. So what we see on trends is simple, that internet sales will drive the flexible packaging demand. Carry bags will continue the decline. And then say simple that we see the single-use person households will be grow, yeah, and will be use more packaging. Next slide, please. So only 46% of all the flexible packaging are collected for recycling. And 23% of all of the plastic was collected was sent to the recyclers. So what we need to do here is simple, that we have to improve the collection and the sorting. That is important for the quality of the recyclates that we can produce and the efficiency of the recyclers. So the collection has to be increased by the extended producer responsibility schemes and harmonize and to set up about across Europe. We have to stop the export of flexible films outside of Europe to developing countries. And we have to stop to produce on unrecyclable flexible films. The new measurement point, where we will measure after the last separation, will have an impact on the recycling rates of the countries. Next slide, please. So when we look to the capacity what is installed, the total capacity what is installed on flexible film is 2.5 million tons in Europe. And if you looked at the biggest ones is simple in Germany, Italy, Spain, Poland, and the Netherlands and France. 77% of the PE recyclers have a capacity below the 20,000 kilotons. So they are small companies. So what we need to do to improve it, we need to invest in new recycling technology. We need to continue to improve the quality of our recyclates. And we need to, when we invest, then you need to consider that you have to invest roughly between 700,000 and 1 million euros to produce 1 ton of recyclates PE. And of course, it takes you 2 years when you start from a greenfield. You have to know that only 13%, 13%, is used back in film to film. The largest end market for PE is something what you could say the non-packaging and the building and construction film. Next slide, please. So we have a big potential here to triple our capacity by 2030. PE film can incorporate new products, recycling content, where we have today only 13%, we could grow to 36%. When we talk about the situation where we came from, we see that the impact on the lack of legislation and the incentives. We see simple that a lot of people, brand and retailers, could use the power to change the business. And we already see that. We see the awareness. And the bottlenecks, what need to be changed, is simple the lack of legislation. There's not enough. There's no incentives for brands and retailers to use recyclates. So there's not the lack of rights, conditions for the design of recycling, and that have to be implemented. So mandatory recycling content, and I know a lot of people are talking about that. We have to create a demand and a market for recyclates. Yes, today products will be required to have recyclates in. So beside of that, we talk now about HGP. The HGP capacity in total what we drop on the market is roughly 70 million tons. Of the 70 million tons, that is HGP and PP together. And if you look to that, the most of them is used in packaging. 62% of the HGP in packaging and 37% in PP. The rest in construction and automotive. I would say that here is the biggest potential. Can we go to the next slide, please? So an estimation is that that 30% of the rigid PP and 40% of the rigid HGP waste was collected. So a majority of the rigid waste arise coming from packaging, 82%, as I mentioned before. HGP and PP collection for recycling rates are very below the European targets. So we have to change the collection method of our households door to door and to the brink sites. The problem is by the HGP and PP, there is still a lack on data, what is not available. Next slide, please. So if you look to the recycling capacity of HDPE and PP, that is only 1.7 million tons. And 92% you can see by which country it is covered there at 1.7 million tons. So the demand is very much higher. Yeah? And HDPE is the largest market for pipes and tubes, followed by injection molding, and blow for bottles. And for PP, it's simple injection molding and the automotive industry and the packaging and construction. And the cost to create an HDPE recycling facility or PP will cost you between 700 and $1 million for 1,000 tons output. And we expect that 6 months tons, simple for customizing this product to your customer. And of course, as the same as everywhere, the attempt to get an environmental permit will cost you 2 years. Next slide, please. So the potential here is simple as the same as by LDP, what I mentioned here, or PP films. It is the potential is a triple of 3 times, three times more capacity we could build by 2030. Yeah, and the demand is increasing. For white and natural, I see a big demand there for the packaging products. And the bottleneck is simple. We have to increase, and to rise the collection. We have to harmonize and the collection schemes across Europe. We need to get standards of output and sorting centers. Yes, and we need to rise the demand for recyclable polyolefins across the different products. Next slide, please. And I know you have heard about this, targets and commitments. You have heard about, I saw the 50% and the 55% when we talk about recycling targets. We spoke about the 77% and the 90% on collection when we talk about bottles. And then we saw, simple, that it is really put now in law, the recycling content. And we have put an objective that all the packaging need to be recyclable by 2030. And then we saw all the plastic packs and the commitments, what is made by brand owners, retailers, to say that they want to use 25 to 30% recycled material in their packaging. Some of them is mentioned by the Ellen MacArthur Global Commitment. So, but beside of that, we have to take up the 10 million tons of recycled material by 2025. Next slide, please. As maybe you know, we as Plastic Recycling Europe, we have created Recyclas. You need to know, we can only turn a plastic waste to a product if it is recyclable. Next slide, please. For that reason, yes, we have to create guidelines. Guidelines who can you test the recyclability. In the beginning, we was alone. And then now we have a lot of friends, a lot of members who work with us together, to make packaging recyclable. So it is an initiative from the Plastic Recycling Europe, with their knowledge, with their know-how, but work with the whole value chain. And here you see the names of the members of Recyclas. Can you go to the next slide, please? Here you see an example of our guideline. And you need to understand, if I would decide it only, everything would simply be in red. I would like to have only monomaterial, but that is not the real world, and we know that. And we have to find a solution, what is acceptable. We can only do that by testing innovative packaging, what will become new on the market if it is recyclable. Next slide, please. So our members was in the beginning only looking if the packaging would be recyclable. But now they request that we have to let them know, how much material will they and can they use in their packaging. And for that reason, we do at this moment a certification on recycling content. Some people will say, Tom, can you be successful with that? Then I would like to remember you one thing. Ursa Plus was created 11 years ago. Today, and it was simple to get more traceability and transparency in the whole plastic value chain. And today we have 214 companies who have an Ursa Plus certificate, and we cover more than 4.6 million tons. So if we want to work together, if we are willing to show our trust in a system, if we want to show the traceability, the transparency to our customers, yes, then you could follow Recyclass and to look, that you get a certificate on recycling content. Next slide, please. And of course, it is not very clear that we have done everything. So there's not a clear definitions. So where are we talking about when we talk about recycled material? Is it byproducts? Is it post-industrial recyclates? Is it post-consumer recyclates? When we talk about chemical recycling, is there a free allocation of recycling content? Do we simply say it was a batch, or do we put it in products? So another one is simple, the self-declaration or the origin of the waste. Can we know where the waste came from? What kind of waste do we have used? This is the challenge and the risk that Recyclass have to tackle, but we cannot tackle it alone. We have to tackle it with you. We can do it together as a value chain. Next slide, please. So when we talk about a fair level playing field, we need to get a harmonization of the use of recyclates, recyclability, and recycling content. So we have to make guidelines, definitions, and the conditions that required a communication following by a certification. So I would ask you and invite you to go to the website and to look at it. We would like to work with you. Yes, we are the recyclers. That is true. But we are a member of the value chain and we want to contribute to a circular economy. Please, last slide. So I would like to thank you for your attention and I hope on your support to accomplish our vision and mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ton, for your excellent presentation. Now, the whole world knows about the tremendous work that is being conducted in Europe on the recycling of plastics. But above all, the Recyclass platform that is a tool of excellence, which gives the guidelines for the design for recycling. I can assure you that we receive the Recyclass newsletters and we inform our members about the Recyclass platform. Thank you. The following speaker is Alexander Danzis, who is the Managing Director of the European Plastic Converters. He leads the organization for 23 years. Last year, we should celebrate the 30 years of the UPC organization in Brussels. However, the pandemic has changed your plans. We are very pleased to host you in our panel, and the title of your presentation is about the challenges and opportunities in our industry for a more efficient circular economy. Alexander, the electronic floor is yours.
Thank you, Elias. Can you please show the presentation? So good morning, everybody. Thank you again for inviting me to this event. I was a part of the first webinar last year. It's always a pleasure to update about what Europe means for the plastics industry, and particularly for plastics converters. I have about 15 minutes, and I will use 10, 12 minutes to update you on what I believe are the challenges and maybe some opportunities for plastics converters. And at the end of the presentation, I would like to show you a video. I'm not used to end my presentations with videos, but I think this one is quite interesting because it basically gives the word to children on how they think about plastics and plastics pollution. Next slide, please. So another COVID-19 year. What have been the challenges the last year? We've seen a lot of national single-use plastics bans through the directive, but we also see a growing alternatives to plastics on the market, and I think this is something that we really need to monitor very carefully. The implementation of the EU single-use plastics directive is not that simple in Europe. I think there is a bit of a chaos right now, and I think this is going to last for a couple of more years. So I'm a bit afraid of the internal market, to be honest. I see many national initiatives, some of them going beyond the EU directive. We see plastic taxes in certain countries, different levels, different interpretations, different implementations. So a lack of harmonization, and that's really a pity if we want to create a market for plastics recycling. The Circular Plastics Alliance is working hard, trying to achieve the targets of 10 million tons. And as indicated by Ton in the previous presentation, standardizing quality, standardizing collection, sorting, things like that are very, very important. So my call for the national plastics associations to really link up with the work to be done at Senelec, following the potential mandate they will get from the European Commission. We all see the continuous very negative image of the plastics in the world. I learned a new word a couple of weeks ago, the weathering plastics with global consequences. I'll come back to that. I'll also say a few words on the polymer supply, because this is really, really today the most important challenge for our industry. Mandatory recycled content for materials or product, I will come back to it as well. And then here you have two good news from my point of view. The very good initiative in Spain of the Plastics Museum, which is a very good example, and potentially can turn the tide and let people think again in a different way on plastics. And then the Plastic Paradox, which is a very good book to distribute to any politician who is really working, and there are many politicians today who are working on the future of our industry, but still need to understand our industry. And this is a simple book written by a PhD Dr. Chris de Armit. I think it's really worthwhile to get that book and to have a look at it. So we are ready to distribute this all over Europe, in case some people would like to send it to some dedicated persons. Next slide, please. Weathering of plastics, a planetary boundary threat. Scientific community is raising the alarm bell. This is not fake, this is reality. Exposure, fate, hazard. I think this is very serious, and therefore our industry, together with all other stakeholders, really need to get closely and very heavily involved in reducing this microplastics pollution. As an industry, we have set up a new certification scheme called Operation Clean Sweep, in order to make sure that the plants are going to be able to be audited and certified, depending on the pellet losses they have on their facilities. I think it's very important that we continue to develop this all over the world, basically, but in particular in Europe, where we stand now, and where we try to harmonize this new certification system. Next slide. Mandatory recycled content, a very complex issue. Is it a mandatory recycled content in the material? Is it in the product? There are lots of discussions going on right now. Is it going to be imposed to a member state? Or is it going to be imposed on certain products? There are, from our point of view as converters, 10 conditions that really need to be taken into account in order to move forward. First, we really want a European-wide harmonization. And that needs to go through strict regulation, not to give the chance to one member state to deviate this from another system. We really need to have a regulation. It should be the same everywhere and harmonized correctly. There needs to be an assessment done on alternative legal measures where recycled content the uptake can increase. For example, we can work through the EPR schemes, or we can work also with a substitution quota for virgin polymer. This is also maybe an easier system to implement than trying to work with plastics converters having to reach certain targets in products. There should be a differentiation of quotas according to the different sectors or the products where, of course, we are involved. We're talking always about 20-30% in PET packaging, and maybe some other rigid containers will have similar targets. But there are so many other applications where we could use more recycled material. So we have to have a differentiation of these quotas. The obligation to reach this target should certainly not be put on the packaging manufacturer. That is extremely complex to achieve. So either for packaging at the filler or distributor, or maybe the member state who need to get this organized. Of course, we have to have standardization of recyclate qualities. We cannot jeopardize on quality, so it's important we continue to work on that on the European level. We need to remove all the legal barriers for food contact before imposing these mandatory obligations for food packaging. We have it for PET, and hopefully the food contact regulation would accelerate its process on finally releasing the approval systems of EFSA for PET, and then later on, probably for polyolefins and chemical recycling as well. Very important is to monitor the market and to make sure there are suspension clauses if the demand of recyclate exceeds the supply. We don't want to be in a position where basically we have a marketing ban because converters can have access of recycled material and therefore not fulfilling the obligations. And also the acceptance of post-industrial recyclates next to post-consumer, I think is an important point. And the enforcement of the member states' authorities, I said at the beginning. So in general, I think we need to improve both the supply and the demand of qualitative recycled materials on this. Some words on the polymer supply. This is not new to you. This is not a COVID-19 map. No, this is a polymer shortage map, turning red in many countries. And I guess that more countries have turned red over the last couple of weeks. A very important issue that we need to tackle. Next slide, please. This is the situation that occurred after all these force majeures have been announced. So the differentiation between the ethylene and the polyethylene prices are enormous. So basically the margins have become very, very interesting for polymer producers right now. Probably something that was needed after the crisis they were in a year ago, and a need to upgrade again the margins. Next slide. We are monitoring all these force majeures, and we have a top 20 of force majeure companies. This is data which can be downloaded on the Polymers for Europe Alliance. And we see, of course, an evolution, but it's clear that this impacts a lot our industry. And therefore, we will this year not provide awards to the best polymer suppliers, but we will make an assessment. Next slide, please. So there will be no best polymer awards. We postponed the first 6 months the voting procedure, but we have just launched now on the 1st of June the opening of an assessment of the supply, where all converters can really opt for providing written feedback about how they believe their suppliers have treated them during this crisis. At the same time, we have released a press release where we are looking into monitoring and investigating eventually with the European Commission the current situation of the force majeures. Next slide, please. Some words on the Circular Plastics Alliance. Ton already said it. It's clear that if we want to grow into our 10 million tons, we need to develop more collection sorting at national level in every country. So there needs to be more material available. And we need to design our products for circularity or recyclability in a better way. So the Circular Plastics Alliance is working in different product groups in order to reach these targets. And I think they've done excellent work in paving the way achieve the 10 million tons. It's not going to be easy, but we need to make sure that we continue to drive this agenda. Next slide. I think some of you may know that we have set up a system to register the use of the recycled material by the plastics converters. Beginning, we started in 2018-19. We had 450 companies that had registered the platform. In the first year, we achieved about 500,000 tons of volume registered by the converters. And the latest numbers have reached 1 million. And this is really promising. And I hope we will continue to build on that 1 million in the next years to come. We still have 4 or 5 years. Still, it's not long, but we really need to continue to work on this. Here you see the percentages of the 1 million ton according to the different polymer families, going from PVC, PP, LDPE, HDPE, PT, and polystyrene, where obviously the polyolefin fraction is the biggest fraction as a whole. Next slide. The next step for the MORE tool is to work on certification, because as Tom rightly said, certification is very important. I think there's not a presentation today on Polycert, so I will not say more about this. Next slide. Single-use plastic directive, yes, the chaos in Europe. Published today their guidance paper, their guidelines about what can be considered a single-use plastics. But according to the directive, extremely complex. It will take, I think, still a lot of time before you will see the impact and before things will evolve in a harmonized way. I think we still need to work as an industry, even on this guidance paper, to make it also understandable for our industry. The marking, for example, or where you would have to put 10 languages on a bucket, I think doesn't really make sense. But still, the European Commission might listen to our concerns. We have to continue in dealing with all of these documents. Next slide. So as a conclusion, and then I will show the little video. Challenges and opportunities. Supply was and is a major challenge today for plastics converters. I think plastics converters have to secure their virgin and their circular polymers for the future. When I say circular polymers, I mean recycled polymers, chemically or mechanically recycled polymers. This is the future. And as converters, the challenge will be to secure that material, but also your virgin material. It's a time to assess your suppliers in these difficult times. I mean, you know your friends in difficult times. And I think now is the right time to express your opinions as converters, how you were treated and how you could deal with the future. On regulations, I think adapting to markets is going to be a challenge. Moving towards sometimes essential goods are opportunities. Avoiding getting into the SUP business, I think, would be my advice. The single-use plastics implementation is creating chaos in Europe. So if small companies had a European market in the single-use plastics activity, it's going to be difficult to maintain it as it is today. There will be lots of administrative burdens, reduction targets, and things like that to solve. Finally, certification. I think we need, as converters, to ensure quality certified products are placed on the market. So quality and certification are very important, but with this certification, we need to enhance the credibility and the transparency of the plastics industry. And really, please report the use of your recycled material, because there's nothing more than to be proud of using recycled material today. And we need to show that to to our audience and to all the stakeholders. Next slide, I think, should be the video, so I hope the video link will work. Please try to start the video link if possible.
I'm sorry, as I was informed, the video does not work, so you will have the opportunity to see it privately. Thank you very much, Alexander, for your insightful presentation. We regret to see the promising starting actors that will revolutionize the plastic industry when you will see the video. You mentioned the supply major issues for plastic converters. I liked very much the monitoring recyclates for Europe system or more, where the companies register voluntarily the tons of material that they recycle annually. France is the European champion for the moment, with 320 companies out of 450 registered in the system, and more than 390,000 tons out of 1 million tons that have been registered so far. Regulations and the issues with the single-use plastics implementations, and we go through this exercise. And finally, the certification schemes in order to ensure the quality of the certified products that will be placed in the European market and enhance credibility and transparency of the plastics industry with the use of recycled materials. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
The next presentation comes from Plastics Europe. We are very pleased to welcome Giuseppe Riva, who has an extensive experience in various sectors in the plastics industry, from research and development till marketing and sales. And he is the regional director of the Mediterranean region for Plastics Europe. The title of his presentation is Circular Economy, a Challenge for Plastics. Giuseppe, the electronic floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody. I want to thank the Greece Association for the invitation and for having organized this very useful event. And I will start with my presentation. This is the summary. Something regarding the circular economy, the vision of the European Commission, the problem of plastic goods and of waste, the initiatives. We already have some example of this, of the plastic industry, and some conclusion that we want to share with you. So regarding circular economy, we fully agree, of course, on the vision of the European Commission. We, as a society, we are consuming resources in a very linear way. And this could or is creating problems already. And this problem can lead, and we all know, can lead to climate change, desertification, loss of biodiversity. So the vision is by the Commission is for a smart, innovative, and sustainable plastic industry, and we fully agree on this vision. The objective of Europe, of the UE strategy, we already have had in a very clear way, have already presented these objectives this morning, is they are fundamentally that within 2030, all plastic packaging must be either reusable or can be recycled in a very economic way. By 2030, more than half of plastic waste generated in Europe is recycled. And we already saw that this means 10 million tons by 2025. By 2030, sorting and recycling capacity in Europe has to be increased fourfold. If we compare it, the capacity of sorting and recycling with 2015. Another instrument in order to improve the circularity of our industry and of our products is the European Directive on soups. We all know what means this directive. We all know that practically all the member states are bringing into force this directive. And I want to mention, because in our opinion it's very important, that the objectives of the directive are to prevent and reduce the impact of certain plastic products on the environment. Just a couple of examples of what means this European directive, single-use European directive, and why we are presenting this example, because these are the product, in this slide, are the product of the Part B of the annex of the European directive, are single-use products. But we have to say we already underlined this fact also with our authorities in Italy, for example, but also in the other countries, mainly in the southern part of Europe and the Mediterranean. These are all goods which are used mainly in our countries. Ours means Mediterranean countries, for a lot of reasons. And these are, of course, cutlery, plates, straws, and so on. This will be banned. And we are dialoguing. We have a strong, intense interaction with the authority in order to see and to present what this means for our industry. And for our industry, and as I said, for our industry will be really a damage to go out from the production of this product. And this is another part of the directive, and caps and lid has to remain attached to the container, and also, we have already seen this objective. From 2025, the PET beverage bottles placed on the market has to contain at least 25% of the recycled plastics. I want only, in this regard, make a simple consideration. And this, we have to be very aware, because mainly for PET, there could be a problem regarding the availability of the products, the availability of the recycled content, of the recycled material. Linked to the circularity for the plastic industry is the problem of the plastic goods and of waste. And this problem is very urgent to be tackled. We have a huge quantity of plastic littering that end up in the ocean every year. We have to solve this problem. I remind that this problem is mainly coming from 10 rivers in Asia and in South America, but also for Africa. For the Mediterranean, we are hit by the Nile, and this is very important because is a clear consequence of the fact that the rivers are not properly used, or on the other hand, is the clear demonstration that many countries has to build their waste management, not only for plastics, this is very important, but for all the waste. So what we are doing, we already discussed it this morning. We have an excellent presentation. We have a lot of things that we have seen. We share the vision of our and the objective of the plastic producer. Certainly, the first objective is to prevent leakage of plastics, to accelerate resource efficiency. We already seen it. The third objective is very important. We shall have also this objective in our final consideration, creating global awareness. And of course, increase reuse and recycling of plastic packaging. We have a lot of initiatives as an industry. I mention only one, this one, Alliance to End Plastic Waste, where we have a lot of industry participating with many projects, mainly in the countries where we have seen the problem of the waste management is more acute. And I want to draw your attention on the main area of the activity of this alliance are infrastructure. We have a lack of infrastructure everywhere in the world. I have to say only few countries are have a modern infrastructure. So this must be one of our objective. Innovation, we have already seen, we need innovation. Innovation is really the core of our activity. Education, we shall see again, education is a key point. Plastics is not a problem, just the problem is the behavior of all of us. And of course, we have the need of remediation, the need of cleanup of plastics which are already in the environment. This is regarding this alliance are some of the companies which are participating, are brand donor or multinational producer of plastics. Let me talk a little about the chemical or molecular recycling, as you want to say. The chemical recycling transforms plastic waste into new chemical products. But we have to be very careful. It's not a substitution to the mechanical recycling, which remains the first choice. It's a complementary technology to the mechanical recycling in order to reach a more circularity in our product and in our industry. So we have to go towards the optimization of mechanical recycling, having in mind that what is not possible to recycle mechanically, we could, with the new or with the new capacity of chemical recycling, we can use it and put again in circle with new plastics. And of course, this is something that is our objective, is the situation you see of the plastic waste in Europe. The column in the middle, the situation today is mechanical recycling in Europe, 32%, thermal valorization 43%, landfill 25%. Landfill is too much. I don't talk, in general it's 25%, but in many countries it's much more. We have seen also this morning. And you see the next step is to introduce the chemical recycling to eventually reduce the quantity which nowadays is going to the thermal valorization, and of course increase mechanical recycling. But you note, the most important thing is to go out from landfill. Landfill is not acceptable anymore. I talk also for Italy. We have still a huge quantity of waste, of very valuable waste going to landfill. We have to do and to put all our efforts in order to avoid in the future landfill. So the conclusion, the conclusion are regarding the key factors. The first is education. We need to educate people. We need to have a campaign in the school, mainly with the young generation, in order to let them know the value of plastics, and on the other hand, that plastic is so valuable that is not to be thrown away. And so they achieve the goal of 100% of separate collection is absolutely important, is a precondition. We have seen that when we have a separate collection, nothing of what is collected in a separate way, nothing is going to landfill. So this is a first step. It's not sufficient, but it's very important. Of course, innovation of product and waste management. And I have to underline the last consideration that I want to share with you. The necessity of strategy which has to be defined together by institution and industry. I think that also this morning we have an evidence of it. The institution and the industry are starting to move together, to study together the problem, because it's not only a problem of the industry and it's not only a problem of the citizen. We have to define our strategy together with the institution, industry and institution. And in this regard, I have to say, after having assisted this morning to all the presentation and also to the consideration of the institution, that webinar like this one is going in the right direction. I have to thank the President, Mr. Goryadis, for having this as a focus. Really, we have to move in this direction. Just to say that at the end, plastics cannot be banned. Plastic will continue to have a very important role in our society, in our daily life. And have you seen, these are the 17 United Nations objectives. At least on 7 of that, plastic had and will continue to have an important role in order to reach this very, very important objective for our planet. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Giuseppe, thank you very much for your presentation. Some key points to remember. The circular economy is a challenge for our industry. The issue is not the plastic itself, but the plastic waste. The issue of plastics waste has been generated by the rivers and go to the oceans, with a major issue in the Asiatic countries where there are no infrastructures for recycling and no people's education. Alliance to End Plastic Waste is a major commitment of our industry. Investments of more than 1.5 billion dollars over the next 5 years, where more than 80 companies in the name of BASF, Dow, LyondellBasell, Sabic, Versalis, among others, who have joined their forces to tackle this issue where the real problem is, in Asia. Finally, the civil education is key. And with the technology and the dialogue between the institutions and the plastic industry, it is necessary in order to achieve, in the long run, a zero waste society. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you and to everybody, of course.
The next presentation is coming from the European Recycling Industries Confederation. And the presenter is Dr. Alejandro Navazas, if I pronounce well your name. Dr. Navazas has a master's degree in environmental biotechnology from the University of Oviedo in Spain. He has received a PhD in biological sciences from the University of Hasselt in Belgium. Today, he is the scientific officer at the European Recycling Industries Confederation, and he is passionate about circular economy and sustainability. Dr. Navazas, the electronic floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction. Good morning to all the audience. I will proceed with my presentation. So briefly to mention, and again, thank you very much to the Association of Hellenic Plastic Industries for the invitation. It's really a privilege to be among these great speakers. Just to briefly present EURIC. EURIC stands for the European Recycling Industries Confederation. We represent national federations and companies that are active in the recycling of different materials. So going from paper to metal, plastics, which is of course at the core of the discussion, and also textile, tires, and many others. In this regard, we represent in a total of more than 6,000 medium and small size companies. And just because we represent different waste streams, we are therefore organized in different branches. And we have a European Plastic Recycling branch, EURIC EPRB, where basically the main goal of this branch is to raise awareness on one side of the role that recycling has in order to achieve sustainability, and on the other to encourage the development of policies that are friendly to recycling. The title of my presentation is Recycler Needs and Opportunities for Circularity, which, to be honest, I think it could be reduced because in the way we see it at EURIC, recycler needs are in the end a synonym for opportunities for circularity. And just by stressing the obvious, there's no need to say that there is a change in perception of plastics. So it has really gone from being a praised material in its outset. Little by little in the last decades, there has been an increasing concern about the environmental impacts and also the health impacts of this material. But despite the mistrust, something that has been recalled by Mr. Riva, the thing is that this material, plastic, is a good material and it's really essential. It is vital for our modern life. If we look on the research browser, when people look for plastics, we see that automatically this word is really associated to ocean, recycling, pollution, and in the fourth place to bottle, which is actually one of the applications of the many applications of plastics. In this regard, I would like to focus on the fact that recycling is already associated to plastics because this means that the society is trying to balance the benefit that we use from plastics and also the environmental impacts. I would like to stress that the circular economy is not only something local or European, it's really a global endeavor. Circular economy is a must. We have luckily a middle class that will be increasing in the following decades, and therefore it's absolutely essential to decouple growth from the use of primary resource materials. And therefore, circular economy in this regard is, again, a must. And it's not only resource efficient, but it's also climate efficient. And not only talking about CO2, because every time that we substitute for primary raw materials, we are also contributing to less ocean acidification, global warming mitigation, and also protecting vulnerable communities. But what I really would like to stress is that if we really want to change from a linear economy to a circular economy, which we are at the moment really far from that, we really need to act all over the different steps of the value chain. So from production, also through treatment of end of life. And in this regard, it is very important that in order to close the loop, it is really necessary to introduce secondary raw material into the new production process. And it's in here where, let's say that recycling needs will fit, and it will be what I will discuss, because as mentioned, we are really far from achieving a circular economy. The Circularity Gap report that has been published this year has told us that we are really not getting there. We are rather stagnated in how circular we are. And in a nutshell, if especially for plastics, we want to become circular, we really need to improve eco-design and try as much as possible to increase the amount of recycled material that are incorporated into new plastic products. And in turn, we will generate a stable market if we create this demand, which of course will be translated into a decrease of natural resources, saving CO2 emissions, which need to also be internalized in price terms, and this will definitely help to solve the problem of the waste trade for plastics with more control exports, for which therefore is needed as well to start thinking about harmonization of end-of-waste criteria and the creation of this end-of-waste criteria for plastics. And this is in a nutshell, but I will proceed later on. But if we really need to achieve circularity, I would like to stress that we really need to go all over these different steps. So when it comes to product design, this is really the mother of all battles for Zurich. We really need to put in the market products that are designed to be used for a longer time, that they are designed to be easily repairable, that they are going to be probably able to be reduced, but that also that are going to be recycled at the end of life, and try to incorporate as much as possible of recycled content. And here, and this problem is especially for plastics, is that the pricing of the impact of what is put in the market in terms of externalities, be it positive or negative, is not really reflected. And when you recycle plastics in Europe, you really do it with the cost of the energy in Europe, you do it with European workforce, and you also do it with investments. And the price of recyclates is not related at all with the price of oil. And the price of oil is a price that is variable in time. It really varies a lot. And this goes really lower that we recyclers can afford, that we European recyclers can afford. And during the COVID time, we have seen that the prices for oil have decreased so much that in turn, the virgin polymers that are doing from this oil also decreased in price. And we saw that these really were correlated, for example, for recycled PET. However, we have also seen that thanks to the Single-Use Plastic Directive, that is a directive that, as it was mentioned before, on the one side looks at restricting the type of polymers that are put in the market, and also grant a better recyclability, and also assess and create mandatory targets for recycled content. We saw in this case that in here, for the first time, there was an absolute correlation, the correlation of the price of recycled PET that is going to be used for food grade applications, really matching with the price of recycling in Europe. And therefore, we really believe that this is one of the main ways to achieve circularity. As well, I would like to stress the fact that although the targets have been set around 25% for 2025, there are some companies that right now they are taking the challenge and they are going way beyond that, which is really appreciated. And from Zurich, we really believe that these mandatory recycled content targets should be applied to other waste streams, like, for example, waste coming from electronic equipment should be back into these appliances, and also in the automotive industry. And in this regard, we will be able to see also an increase and better recoverability and also recyclability rates. But what is also very important, and this is critical, is that if we are going to start putting a cap and reducing landfill and incineration in order to achieve a circular economy, is in here where the demand, where the domestic market becomes crucial. And if we are really now seeing some export, that means that there is a problem in the market. So we really need to create a well-functioning market for Europe. And in this regard, we have a lot of activities going on, like, for example, the waste shipment regulation, including the revision of the corresponding guidelines number 12 for the shipment of plastics. And what is very important in this regard is to really send the right message that recycling is an economic of scales. And there are not in Europe recycling capacities to try in every country to recycle every kind of plastic, because plastic is used in different applications and recycling technologies are available there, but in different countries. So therefore, we really need to guarantee a smooth transport of waste intra-EU, and of course, put a cap and absolutely not allow the transport of waste that has been not processed out of EU. But for this, again, we really need to create a market for recyclates. And this could be, for example, something very similar to what happened 50 years ago with the internal market for goods, and we really need to duplicate this model for plastic recyclates. One of the main ways as well to really create a smooth internal market for plastic recyclates is also working on granting for these plastics that have been processed and that are of such a purity that can be incorporated into new plastic products to really grant and get away from the waste status and grant them an end of waste criteria. And this will definitely help part of the problem. But if this will happen, what we really need is a harmonization across Europe. Because, for example, for paper, and I put here the sample for paper where there are quality grades and the end of waste criteria is applied, as it is not harmonized across Europe, we see that this material changes from status when it's shipped, for example, from the Netherlands up to through all the landers of Germany. And this creates a lot of cost, a lot of delays in time, and in the end, waste is looking for other ways to be processed, which are lower in the waste hierarchy and do not contribute to the circular economy. And therefore, we really need to work on this to run the circular economy for this plastic waste stream. So, really, to move from an intrinsical linear economy, because as we have seen, only 12% of the material that the European industry is using comes from recycling, we really, really, really need to identify those game changer activities. And in this regard, now with the European recovery funds, a lot of money will be injected into the European economy. And it's really important to identify those game changer activities that will allow to increase circularity, and not talking about only about recycling, also about designing of products, better collection, and also other kind of end-of-life treatment recoveries. So just to put everything into a nutshell, we really need a systemic approach to solve this problem. We have to look at the recycling business and at the recycling status as a whole ecosystem, and we really need to work on better eco-design of products, and also try to work and achieve absolutely that the material is effectively recycled into new materials, for which we need policies that really encourages a constant demand of recycled content and also restrict landfill and incineration. And in this regard, also these prices of recycled materials into new products needs to be reflected, and we really need to work recycling and recycled content. And in this regard, because recyclers, we are doing recommendations, but what about innovation? And in this regard, as it has also been stressed by Don Emmons, I would like to make clear that innovation, when it comes to plastics, it can really help to improve the fate and also the way in which a product is treated at their end of life. But we really expect that innovation is tested before it's put into the market. We have seen this problem, for example, when opaque PET was put in the market, there were no technologies in place to recycle this material, and it's only now where the technologies are being created, and in a way that is able to even create a closed loop for this material. But the same is happening with bioplastics. They are put in the market, and they really interfere with the actual collection and sorting technologies, and they are hampering the transition to a circular economy, whereas they could have a nice fit, but this really has to be determined by extended producer responsibility schemes. So therefore, we really would like to work together along the whole value chains, and especially that when innovation is taking place, this is really going to be assessed before it's put in the market. As well, as it has been mentioned in the previous presentation, we really need investments to increase the waste management infrastructure, where separate collection plays a paramount role, and this will definitely help to boost quality and also quantity of plastic recyclates. A targeted oriented revision of the waste management regulation, where we really need to create a smooth internal market for recyclates within Europe, but also put a cap on material that is not processed and is exported outside Europe, creating an absolutely bad publicity. And as well as we move into a more circular economy, we have to deal with a lot of substances of concern, especially present in plastics, which have a very long lifetime, as it happens, for example, in materials from building and construction, or also in automotive. And in this regard, it's very important to take into account new technologies that are coming into place. like, for example, chemical recycling. Chemical recycling has a paramount role to play in this regard. But what I would really like to stress is that indeed chemical recycling needs to act as complementary to mechanical recycling, but they should not compete for the same feedstock, because if we attacked with both recycling technologies the same feedstock, we are missing really the point for circularity. So we really think that chemical recycling should and is really needed a development in this regard, but to really do the work where chemical recycling, where mechanical recycling cannot do it. And therefore, in this regard, we see that the individual journey of sustainability of all of us really starts with recycling. And therefore, it remains key that we can achieve all these short-term and also long-term challenges, because when people start to recycle, we are achieving a more circular economy, and this also changes the mindset to try new polymer types, to try new technologies. But first, we really need to solve the business problem. So thank you very much for your attention. I would like to invite you to Yuri webpage, and you can check there a lot of the documents and statements that we are producing. Yeah, it is a pleasure. And if there are any questions, please do not hesitate to reach us.
Sharp and crisp presentation. Thank you, Dr. Navasas, for your presentation. The key points to remember are the opportunities for circularity, the ingredients for a successful circular recipe. It is time to build an internal market for recycling, the drive of the international trade in waste and secondary raw materials, and finally, focus on a systemic approach in order to fix the problems with the plastic waste. Thank you again for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
The next presentation is about certification schemes for converters for polymeric materials. We have been through this exercise internally in the level of all directors at the UPC. Today, Martin Policar will present you these certification schemes. Martin Policar has a master's degree from the University of Leuven in Belgium in behavioral sciences, European politics and policies, and a second master's degree from Leiden University in the Netherlands on organizational behavior studies, crisis and security management. Today, Martin Policar is the Advocacy and Regulatory Affairs Manager at UPC, and the title of his presentation is about the umbrella of technical platform for harmonizing existing certification schemes for converters of polymeric materials in Europe. Martin, the electronic floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ilias, for this very kind introduction. And thank you again for inviting me to present at your very nice conference. It is a pleasure for me to present you here this wonderful initiative, a European initiative called Circularity Europe. And as Ilias already mentioned in his prequel here, we are talking here about an umbrella technical platform for harmonizing existing certification schemes for converters of polymeric materials in Europe. Now, this long sentence here that you can see on this first slide actually grasps everything which is hidden under the label of Circularity Europe. So what here is standing behind the idea is not necessarily, or not creating a new Polycert or new certification scheme as such, but it is to bring together actually the existing certification schemes that are already on the market, on the European market, and that are already used by many converters in the different member states, and bring those schemes together and develop and work together on harmonizing the way how each of those certification schemes is certifying recycled content in converted products. Before I go back, I will give you a little background on why and how this initiative was actually created. Based on the targets that the European Commission and the European Union has put on our industry, on the whole plastics value chain, basically, and you heard in the previous presentations that converters, European converters, have created this a platform called More, in which converters today can register the amount of recycled plastics which they put into their new products before they put them on the market. But at the same time, at that point, those data, basically, which are collected by the More database, are declarations of companies. So the following associations and organizations that you see on the slide actually put their heads together in 2020 because they thought, well, if when we have this this data from the converters saying how much recyclate they put into their products, well, we should also show that those data are credible and that they are verified by independent third parties, so that we can have a solid verification and credible claims towards the customers, downstream users, and also to the authorities. And therefore, in 2020, these associations and companies and bodies have came together and decided to launch this initiative called Polycert Europe. To give you a quick fly through who those organizations are, at the beginning, on the top, you see the Belgian Quality Association, and next to it, the Centex Bel VKC, which is the Belgian Competent Center for Plastics and for testing of plastic products. There next to it, you have EUPC, the European Plastics Converters Association. Then you have ECRA, the European Carpet and Rug Association, representing the carpets producers. Further, you have ESWA, the European Single-Ply Waterproofing Membrane Association. You have Valipack, and you have Waste-Free Ocean, which is a very interesting organization promoting a use of ocean-bound plastic into new products. And on the bottom row, you have the National Converters Associations, which are also the founding members of Polycert Europe, and those are the Italian Union Plast, the French Polyvia, which is formerly known as Fédération de la Plasturgie, Belgian Essentia Polymeters, and the Dutch NRK. So those are the founding members today of Polycert Europe, and they are supporting the harmonization of the certification schemes. So to better understand the logic behind this, here you can see basically the main arguments why the above mentioned associations saw the need to create a new platform to actually harmonize the work. Well, the main reason was to basically bring together, as I said, the existing certification schemes that are already today certifying recycled content in converted products at converters, and bring them together and start working on how we can harmonize the way we do this, so that each of the schemes is basically talking the same language, as I would put it. Secondly, the very important point was to raise confidence throughout the supply chain towards the products containing recycled materials. And this is to show that even products containing recycled material live up to quality requirements and can perform as well as products which contain virgin or only virgin materials. Thirdly, the objective also was to ensure that the quality of products, containing plastic, and therefore, for example, to make sure that the performance of the products, if you talk about, for example, construction or even automotive or packaging, that the products that are made actually are quality products and perform as they're supposed to based on the standards which are applicable to them. Fourthly, the idea was also, of course, obviously, to boost the use of circular materials and to basically give a stimulus also to the industry to go for it and to work on the realization of the circular economy philosophy and vision. Another point, importantly, of this initiative was to encourage uniform declarations of recycled content in converted products, so that each converter can declare in a harmonized way the recycled content in their products. And lastly, but also very importantly, the objective also is to make sure that there is independent means of control on traceability and chain of custody. Well, it is important also to understand, and this is why I put this here on the slide, to see a little bit the value chain at the bottom of the slide. And here, Polycert Europe is, and the certification schemes under its umbrella, are focused on the certification at converters level, as I said. But at the same time, it is important that these certificates and certification schemes are compatible and let's say, have some certain mutual recognition with other existing certifications at the different steps of the supply chain, for example, at the recyclers level or even before. So at the recyclers level, you have also already existing several certification schemes. The most known ones are those of, for example, EU Surplus or INOR, the Spanish base, or those are mainly for mechanical recycling. But also you have certifications focused on the chemical recycling processes, such as ISCC, which is one of the most known certification schemes that certifies circular secondary raw material chemically recycled. And it is important that these certificates, whether they come from mechanical or chemical recycling, are being recognized at the next step in the value chain. So therefore, we also are focusing in Polycert Europe to make sure and to establish criteria under which Polycert Europe auditors would accept and recognize the certificates coming from the supply chain before reaching the converters level. And this is also extremely important so that all certification schemes that are today existing or which they're going to be developed in the future talk with each other along the value chain so that auditors can find the relevant information that they need to find during their audits and to ensure the chain of custody towards the final consumers. What are the main three, let's say, major objectives and arguments of Polycert Europe and the harmonization work that we are doing is, as I said, is firstly the harmonizing of the existing certification so that, as I said, there's uniform communication towards end consumers, whichever certification scheme you're using. At the same time, it is important that to ensure that by this harmonization, that this will help converting companies to reduce their costs for certification, because once the certification schemes among each other are harmonized, then the manufacturer who, for example, converter who has plants in different countries of Europe can use one of those certification schemes because they will be harmonized together, or he can choose different ones and they are using the same. Once they are using the same methodologies, they can be easily replicated. And also, this is important. It is important to mention that the harmonization should work across different sectors of plastics converting. So, be it plastics packaging, be it automotive, or be it construction, the methodology should be the same. The second pillar, important one, is about ensuring compliance and quality. So, what Polycert Europe is focusing on is not only about making sure that you put a certain percentage of, or verifying the certain percentage of recyclate put into the final product, but it is also about ensuring the quality, that the quality of the final product is ensured using the recycled material. And this is important, sometimes perhaps forgotten message and aspect, but it must be kept in mind because we as converters are ultimately responsible for the quality of our final product, which we put on the market, of course. At the same time, it is important that within this harmonization work, all the certification schemes should keep freedom on the amount of declared recycled content so that converters are free to choose, of course, how much recycled plastic they're going to put into their products. Based on their best knowledge and know-how, of course. And also, it is important to ensure the freedom of choice towards recycled material. So converters must remain free to choose where they procure their recycled material from. And lastly, under this point of compliance and quality, I would like to mention that all the certification schemes under the umbrella of Polycert Europe are based on the ISO 9001 quality management systems principles, and those are applied to the audits and audit protocols. And last, third point, let's say on the harmonization work is its European and national reach and outreach, let's say. So as I mentioned before, the uniformity in declaration of recycled content is something that that the certification schemes are and will be working on to make sure that they all speak the same language. At the same time, and this is perhaps one of the most important points, it is absolutely necessary that the certification schemes under the umbrella of Polycert Europe are based on accredited certification bodies. What we mean by this is that the certification schemes which are under the umbrella must be backed up and supported and implemented by not private certification schemes or consultants, but rather by officially accredited certification bodies. And the reason is very simple, because accredited certification bodies are the best actors to provide impartiality and credibility and independency of the audits that they perform. And this is creating a big value as credibility, as a value towards the customers, downstream users, and towards the authorities as well for the converters. And lastly, under this point, I would like to mention that it is important to work with the chain of custody assurance. And this is related to my slide I showed before, and making sure that the certifications which are under the umbrella of Polycert Europe are talking and recognize the other certifications along the value chain. So now let's have a look at a little bit the structure for your information. The Polycert Europe today basically is form of a consortium, and at its top there is a consortium headed by a steering board. There's also an operating board, which deals with technical issues, and but the main pillars of the whole work, or the pillars of the network of Polycert Europe, are the actual accredited certification bodies in the individual member states. So as you see, we have partners in Belgium, Spain, Germany, Italy, and France at this point, and those are very trusted local national accredited certification bodies who are then responsible and accountable for the implementation of their individual schemes, and they are now working together on the harmonization, so that wherever you are in Europe or in the European Union, we are talking the same language and use the same methodology for certification of recycled content. Which certification schemes are today under the umbrella of Polycert Europe are the following ones that you can see before you. So today we have the Belgian-based QA-CER certification of recycled content, which is being operated by the Belgian Quality Association, which is the accredited certification body in Belgium. We have the Spanish certification INOR, which is also backed up by INOR itself, and INOR is also a accredited certification body in Spain. Plastica Seconda Vita is the Italian certification scheme, which is run by the IPPR Institute in Italy, very closely linked to Union Plast. And this is also backed up and implemented by certification bodies such as QA, IIP, and SGS. And lastly, we have today also the German certification scheme called Wertstoff PET under the scheme of German RAL, and this is for the certification of preforms and PET bottles. To remind a very important point that I mentioned earlier on, it is important, and this is the core of the work as well, that the declaration of the recycled content that is then put on the certificate, which is given then to the converter by the auditor, is done in a way that the primary objective of the verification and of the audit is the quality of the final product, and with the objective that which ensures that which ensures the customer that the use of recycled material has no influence on the performance of the final product. At the same time, also it is important to mention that talking about recycled content, we not only talk about post-consumer waste, but we also talk about pre-consumer waste, or previously known as post-industrial waste, because both streams are actually considered as recycled content under the standard EN ISO 14021, and therefore both of those streams should be counted and are counted under the Polycert Europe umbrella and by each of the schemes as recycled content. At the same time, doing the audit, the auditor is also verifying the use of internal recyclates, or better known as scrap or offcuts or edges, what have you, which are being usually just regrinded and put directly back into the same line, but those are not counted as recycled content, but they are kept separate in the bill of material and in the calculation, which is then given to the converter. And here I would like to show you on, I think this is my almost last slide. There are different systems or different levels of certification which is possible under the Polycert Europe umbrella. So the individual certification schemes are either providing each of those three systems or are focusing on system 1 or 2, depending on what their scope of certification is. But essentially, there are three possible ways or levels or systems how products can be certified, or how recycled content can be verified, to put it a different way. So system 1 is considered, let's say, the most general and high-level certification. This is verification of the chain of custody, and this is basically verification of use of the material at the plant level. So you could see as a mass balance, for example, of the material coming in and going out. And for this system 1 certification, the body which is doing the audit or doing the certification must be accredited with ISO 17021 certification, and the certificate can be put on the certificate. The recycled content, the logo of Polycert Europe is put on the certificate, or also on the communication of the whole plant or the company. System 2 is going into more detail. System 2 is looking into the verification of the declaration on recycled content in products or in a product family. So if you, for example, make a specific line of product, you have a specific production line where you have a product with recycled material in it, and you would like to have that verified, this is perfectly possible. And then you can have the logo of the certification and the corresponding certification scheme on the product itself, and you will have it on the certificate, of course. This is probably the most common level of certification, and this is also very relevant to the future or already existing in some member states, let's say mandatory recycled content in certain products. So if you would like to have that verified, you can use the System 2 certification. And lastly, the System 3 certification goes into the, let's say, the biggest detail, the deepest detail of certification, and this is basically a conformity assessment against a product standard. This is very common in, for example, construction products, where you have specific standards, product standards, and you need to test specific performance against that product standard, and therefore you can also use one of the certification schemes and bodies under the Polycert Europe umbrella to do this for you. So I think this is my last slide in the description of Polycert Europe, and I would like to conclude my presentation and invite the converters to express their interest. And if you would like to have your product certified once you're introducing recycled material, recycled plastic into your products, please get in touch with Polycert Europe, with us, and we will help you to get to the individual certification schemes and bodies who will be able to best help you on to do this verification and audits, and so that you can make your claim towards your customers and authorities on how you use recycled material. I would like to stop here. Thank you very much for your attention, and I give back the word to Ilias.
Thank you very much, Martin, for your excellent presentation. The key points to remember are the needs of a harmonized certification scheme at converters level, the cost reduction for the companies because one system fits all, freedom of choice towards recycled materials and the freedom of the amount of recycled content, and finally, 3 levels of certification for what is suitable for each company. I hope our colleagues will come in touch with you or with me, and they are invited to have this certificate for their products. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The last but not least presenter comes from BASF. Main topic is chemical recycling. Back in December 2019, we had the privilege to host at the E of A event Dr. Christine Bunte from BASF from Brussels, who gave us a flavor about chemical recycling at BASF. Today, we host a gentleman from BASF who will present the chemical recycling and the mass balance approach of the process. Dr. Klaus Wittstock holds a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Karlsruhe, and he's head of industry affairs at BASF and has more than 25 experience in the company. Dr. Wittstock, the electronic floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ilias. I hope you can all hear me quite well. Yeah, thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to report what BASF is doing to close the plastics loop. So next slide, please. And again, one, yeah. Plastics is, as you all know, important, plays an important role in sustainability in resource economy. And plastics are present in lots of products and applications. We have discussed it today. They're helping us to save energy, CO2 emissions, water, and even food. However, you see it on this picture, plastic waste is a major global challenge, and it's not acceptable that plastic waste is discarded in the environment. And BASF is strongly committed to increase the amount of plastic waste which is collected and later on recycled. However, these global challenges cannot be solved by a single industry. We are therefore a member of Ellen MacArthur Foundation, Operation Clean Sweep, Circular Plastic Alliance, and co-founder of the Global Alliance to End Plastic Waste. And BASF is developing innovative technologies for recycling, for chemical recycling, for mechanical recycling, for organic recycling, all kinds of recycling. But a key pillar for us is the chemical recycling, which I will present now. Next. To set the scene, you see here the plastics value chain, starting with naphtha on the left side from the refinery, entering into the chemical industry, which produced then ethylene and later on polyethylene as an example for plastics. After use, plastics are waste and most often landfilled or incinerated. And with mechanical recycling, we can remelt some of plastics into new products. Unfortunately, we need clean waste streams for mechanical recycling, and the quality of the recycled material is not the same as virgin grade. And there are two options for chemical recycling, either depolymerization. For example, you can depolymerize polystyrene to monostyrene, or the pyrolysis route. In both cases, the polymer is cracked into chemical building blocks, and these new options are offered by the chemical industry, and this is what we are talking if we talk about chemical recycling. And to be very, very clear, if you incinerate the oil of a pyrolysis plant, then this is clearly not recycling, this is energy recovery. Yeah, the important question is now, how can we report about recycled content? And in the last presentation we have already discussed how can you measure recycled content? If waste-based oil or monomers are fed into the large-scale chemical production, we need somehow rules to allocate the recycled content to the input and to products which need to have a recycled content. And we will explain it a little bit more in detail in the next minutes. Next, please. Yeah, I'm talking about mass balance, and it was already mentioned in the last presentation. What is mass balance? What you see here is that the chemical products are traditionally produced with fossil feedstock in highly efficient production chains. The fossil raw material are fed into the beginning, for example, of BASF's Verbund site production, and the outcomes of production of these chemical integrated site are different products. In our case, with BASF, for example, polystyrene, polyamide, but also methanol or even vitamins. Next. Yeah, and as explained before, with chemical recycling, we can use waste-based oil from pyrolysis at the starting point of our production. And by the way, we can, in the same way, also use renewable-based feedstock, something we are using as BASF since years. And this is a so-called biomass balance approach. In both cases, fossil feedstock is saved by using the sustainable alternative. Next. The oil from these different sources, waste-based, fossil, or renewable-based, is mixed in the large-scale chemical plants of our integrated production site. And the advantage of this production is that it is highly efficient, both in terms of cost as well as environmental impact. So with lowest energy consumption and CO2 emissions. And the resulting product can be further processed in the same way as a conventionally produced material. So there's no need to adapt for converters, formulations, plants, or processes. But yeah, however, in the final product, it is impossible to show which carbon molecule is coming from which source. It is not really important because carbon is carbon. So what we need is an allocation rule to allocate at the very end and also at the cost of the additional effort to those who have the benefit of using recycled content. Next. And this allocation is called mass balance. An independent certification system, for example, Red Cert 2 or other systems, are verifying that the customer is getting what he is paying for and that there is no double counting. By the way, we as BASF, we have committed ourselves to use 250,000 tons of waste-based oil until 2025 in our production plants. Yeah, this mass balance approach is not anything new. It's used, broadly used, we can say, known and accepted since years in other industries, not only for recycled content, also for declaration of products which are, you see here, based on palm oil or wood or biofuels or other circular feedstocks. Yeah, next. So to summarize, after a long discussion on plastic recycling in the last 2 hours, in a nutshell, what is mass balance? It's the idea, or the problem is that new waste-based feedstock require more effort and new technologies. And this is more expensive than the normal fossil route. And many customers are interested in recycled content, but not all, especially if it's more expensive than before. And what we want to do is, with mass balance, to allocate the effort, the additional and new effort, to those who are willing to pay. And this solution is mass balance and a must-have for chemical recycling. Next. And this is the last slide. I want to stop and present very shortly what we have achieved so far as BASF. So we have first commercial products on the market. We have done investments in partner companies and startups. For example, well-known Quantafuel or Pyrum, which is working on end-of-life tires. So we are not working only on plastics packaging, also on end-of-life tires as a waste source for chemical recycling and to produce later on in our Verbund sites new products. And we have done a proper life cycle assessment showing the CO2 advantages of chemical recycling. Yeah, and so thanks for listening to our approach, how we want to close the loop.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wittstock, for your presentation and explanations about the mass balance of the chemical recycling process. There's a lot of skepticism in Brussels about the process, but the engineering approach that you have briefly presented give explanations about the status of the project with the mass balance approach, and the products themselves are certified by independent auditors, and mainly the life cycle assessment shows how CO2 emissions can be saved with chemical cycling. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a technical problem did not allow us to watch the video at the end of the presentation of Alexander Danzis. Now we are ready to watch it, and I believe this is the best way to conclude our conference.
My name is June. I'm 7 years old. Wow. I know a lot about dinosaurs. I know all their names. Brachiosaurus, Brontosaurus. Sometimes I forget.
So our family is probably larger than average. We have 5 kids.
It's a lot of kids. Like most families, we use a lot of plastic. Tupperware, toys, car seats, packaging, so much packaging. It's everywhere.
By the time I'm my dad's age, like in 30 years, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. It makes me feel bad. I don't really want plastic to be all over the place. If there's no plastic in the ocean than fish, you could find plastic in your food.
We used to wonder what plastics we can and couldn't recycle until we moved to Ashley, Indiana, and my husband started work at Brightmark.
My daddy works at Brightmark. He's an engineer. And today I got to see where my daddy works.
So my kids have still not seen where I work, and actually most people haven't because we just finished building it. Okay guys, why don't you choose a plastic toy that we can take with us, and we'll put it in there so that we can turn it back into oil, all right? So Ashley is it's a very small town, and up till now it may be the most famous for having a big bright yellow smiley face water tower. But now it has the largest and most high-tech plastics renewal facility in the entire world.
I am excited. I've never been to my dad's work before.
You know, I talked to them a little bit about what I'm doing at work, but it's kind of hard to convey the scale.
I thought it was really big, all of the giant machines. And I saw plastic get turned back into oil. I learned that plastic comes from oil, made from plants that existed before dinosaurs. Way before. And it takes a ton of energy. Tons and tons. And then people just throw it away like it's trash. But it's not. It's actually a way to turn plastic back into oil. Brightmark can take all plastic away. Plastic toys and dinosaurs, straws and styrofoam, you name it, even my crayons.
We're able to accept all kinds of plastic that is commingled. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's a game changer.
So my sister brought a Lego board with Legos on it, and my brother brought a Lego dino, and I brought a real toy dino. We put it on a conveyor belt. First, it went low, then it started going up, and into a grinder, and it chopped up my dinosaur, and it grinded it up. But it's okay, because it's not a real dinosaur. It's just toys. And then it goes through this fancy thing that has roll-up laser eyes. And it can tell if the wrong bit of plastic is there, and shoots it right out of the bar.
It's a near-infrared sorter. It has a special eye, and it can see if it's stuff that we don't want.
Because there's a little eye, a special eye, and if it saw something that wasn't plastic, it would shoot it out with energy. Pew! Yeah. Pew!
So yeah, it shoots out the plastic, out of the stream, and it's fun to watch.
And the white plastic is to get chopped up more peaceful, and it goes into the metal drum, and then they open it up, and it got to see inside, and there were lots of little holes, and that's where all that plastic gets pressed into these teeny tiny little pellets that had lots of color. There was this big tube, they were just rain pellets, and then it makes a big hill of all that stuff. There were tons of pellets. Tons and tons of the whole hill. The pellets were kind of like rabbit poops. And I got to climb the hill. It felt like kind of climbing a mountain. I didn't do very much because I have holes in my shoes.
The pellets get put into giant steel vessels that they're airtight. We heat it up, and it goes through a process that we've perfected called pyrolysis.
Pyrolysis? I think it's a pyrolysaurus. Pyrolysaurus. Wow. I heated all those pellets up very hot. Smells crackle, crackle. And there's no air in there, so the plastic doesn't burn, which is important because then no yucky, toxic stuff gets put into the air. And all the plastic turns into gas, and it gets collected in all these tubes and stuff. And then there's more super secret sciencey stuff that makes really cool sounds like blub, blub, blub. Bloop, 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 bloop. And the plastic turns back into oil. I can make whatever they want from it. Fuel and wax. And eventually they're going to turn it back into plastic. We're still working on that. It's pretty hard.
We're working to take this waste plastic and turn it all the way into clean new plastic, to go fully circular.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. My dad's work has like super top secret patterns. You can't even tell me about it. Sometimes he cries too, but I don't understand any of this stuff.
So we have a patented process that makes this 3 times more efficient than other pyrolysis processes.
This is the biggest thing of its kind in the world, for sure. They could take 100,000 tons of plastic a year and turn it into 18 million gallons of fuel that can power trucks and other things, and 6 million gallons of wax that can make candles and stuff. And it probably costs $260 gazillion, which is a lot.
This is the world's largest plastic renewal facility. We have plans to expand worldwide, and our next ones are going to be even bigger, up to 4 to 8 times bigger. That's really exciting. It's going to change the world.
I think it's cool because you can turn garbage into real things by putting it just in recycling. So if you have a broken toy, you can throw it in recycling and it will come back into a different kind of toy, which is important because then we keep plastic from going into landfills, incinerators, and our oceans, reducing greenhouse gas, which will help us from going extinct, like the dinosaurs.
My dad is actually a chemical engineer as well. I got to go into work with my dad on occasion. It wasn't that often, but I always remembered the experiences that I had. I care about what the world's going to be like when they grow up. We realize here at Brightmark that, we still need to reduce our reliance on single-use plastic. It's everywhere. But also there's high-quality plastics that at some point they're going to be discarded, and something needs to be done about that. I am optimistic about the future. These are problems, but they're problems that we can solve.
Our future will depend on the mark you make. Let's make it right.
Thank you, Alexander, for this wonderful video with the promising young starring actors. Ladies and gentlemen, we arrive at the end of the second part of this international conference. I would like to summarize the topics that have been elaborated during this event. Mr. Grafakos has presented the plan of the Greek Ministry of Environment and Energy about the solid waste management organization and the decrease of landfilling down to 10% by 2030. John Emmons from Plastic Recyclers Europe presented the recycling of plastics in Europe and the Recyclers tool for a better design of plastics with recycling guidelines and with the guiding principles such as traceability, transparency, and trust. Alexander Danzis from UPC has presented an overview of the challenges that the plastics industry had to face during the COVID-19 year, with the supply major issues for the plastic converters, the progress of the monitoring recyclates for Europe system, the regulations and the difficulties of the single-use plastics implementation, and finally, the certification of the materials with the use of recycled materials. Giuseppe Riva from Plastics Europe has presented the challenge of plastics in a circular economy. The education is key for all the consumers and the issue of the plastics waste and not the plastic material itself, and the initiatives of the plastics industry to tackle the plastic waste problem, which is mainly in Asia. Dr. Alejandro Navazas from European Recycling Industries Confederation gave emphasis to the drive of the international trade of waste and secondary raw materials and the focus on a systemic approach in order to fix the problems with the plastics waste. Martin Policar from UPC explained in an elegant way the certification schemes that are under harmonization, and this will be an essential tool to the plastic converters for the quality as primary objective, with the freedom of choice toward the recycled materials and the freedom of the amount of declared recycled content. Finally, Dr. Klaus Witzel from BASF has presented the status of the chemical recycling with a mass balance approach as they are certified by independent auditors. In the name of the Board of Directors of the Association of Hellenic Plastics Industries, I would like to express our appreciation and thank all the sponsors who supported our event and all of you for your excellent contributions to this event. I give the solid floor to President Goryadis for the final words of this international conference. Mr. President.
Thank you, Elias, for the excellent moderation of today and summarizing in very valuable conclusions. I would like to thank the speakers and all the participants for attending and supporting this event. Especially, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank our sponsors who helped us to deliver this groundbreaking event. We hope to welcome you again next year in Athens, but this time with fiscal presence. Thank you.